I pledge allegiance on three. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, City Clerk Deb, please, roll call.
Councilwoman Bogus? Here. Councilman Purdon?
Councilman Purdon's on his way.
Councilwoman Carr?
Here?
Mayor Steinmeier?
Here.
Councilman Corey?
Councilman Corey's out of town.
Councilman Fullick?
Here.
Councilman Forbes?
Here.
Thank you. Okay, I think the agenda is set. We don't have to change that. Mayor's welcome. Well, we have six districts in the city, and we have 6 people to represent each district. They live in the district, and they know their district better than I do. If they can't help you, then you can come to me, and I'll try and help you out. We have a great staff that takes care of everything. I'm glad you're here, and I see 1 public, 2 publics. Okay, 3 publics. All right, very good. We'll move along. Public comment on anything on the agenda. Please come forward. Ben? No? Nobody? Jim? Oh, goodness, we're moving along today. Presentations. Santec, please come forward and introduce yourself and show us the way home.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce Kevin Mangan with Stantec. This is a continuation of our project on our wayfinding and gateway signage program. Today, you're going to be presented with some conclusions from the report to provide you some guidance in the next steps. And we're not actually asking for a decision of the council today. This is for our opportunity to display the different types of family signs to the public. And then we'll be coming back at a later date to ask you for your final decision on how we move forward.
Mayor, City Council, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
Thank you for having us here. We're going to provide a brief update this morning on the signage and wayfinding program that we are assisting the city put together. And just a reminder, I think, in terms of what this work is to be. And the city's bicycle and pedestrian master plan is always the example that we point back to, is we're looking to put together an organized and comprehensive set of thoughts in a citywide manner in which signage can be made part of future capital investment, capital improvement. And if you look at this as a tool as much as anything to staff and council, that on an annualized basis, either by priority, by need, by specific area, specific sign type, you're able to, or better able to, then go ahead and make such commitments year in, year out. Briefly, an overview, what we have is a document that's developing along these sections. I'm going to do a very brief overview today, which is really out of section 1, and then focus on sections 4, 5, and 6, which are what are developing is 3 different design types or family types, if you will, of signs that we intend to come back for a final decision on a preference of which to move forward. In moving forward with that preference, we'll develop in finer detail, develop costs associated with signs. We ourselves will suggest priority locations for those signs and further sort of distribute that across a citywide map. one of the things that is easy to find when you try to do anything on a citywide basis. You have to almost step back and organize yourself, particularly in a comprehensive manner like we were doing. And so one of the things that we did look at early on is, in overview, how do we organize ourselves? Is it by council districts? Is it by certain streets? And basically what we found was that the city broke down pretty well by general neighborhood areas geographically and or some of the natural features of the city. And so as we move through this program and begin our prioritization and assigning locations of signage, we've got this little bit of a different overlay. And while some of the areas are easy to point to, beaches and bays for our westernmost areas of the city, our historic Bonita downtown area probably make some sense. But then we really break ourselves down by the compass in North Bonita, South Bonita, East Bonita, and Northeast. And so as we continue to develop signage and bring these presentations back to you, our focus in an organizing manner, in a comprehensive manner, which comprehensively serves all of Bonita, but will be more or less organized in these manners. So as we've taken a look at the city as a whole, we've also tried to notice some things that are unique about the city and really speak to the city and its people. And it's this characteristic that we're driving at in bringing these three families forward today. Really looking in that these three scenarios to choose, it may be by shape, by color, by material, things that are truly reflective of the city and that this council would like to see move forward, as well as the residents of the city as well. Our first family, we're calling South Florida Coastal, and maybe even more appropriate might be Bonita Springs Coastal. But it's a recall of some of the coastal elements that we see used over time and through time in the development of our area. Point to the coral rock. We don't mine coral rock anymore, but we have the ability to, through concrete products, make product that looks just like it. And standing seam, really a reference to roofing material, but some play with metal in that combination. Some of the things you'll see in commonality here, and this might be a primary identification, a monument sign coming into the city. One of the things that you'll see is that we will relay all of our signage this morning in blue. That blue we feel is really a strong and meaningful color to the city. And one of the things that we certainly recommend is that continues to be the case. There we go. From the main sign in the family one, we break down into other identifying signs that, again, depending on where we are, and I'll move left to right here, we may be providing directional to the vehicle on the left-hand side in terms of wayfinding and movement. As we move through the center of the slide, wayfinding coming down to a pedestrian use and a pedestrian scale. And then even on the far right, which we would actually work with Lee County to establish, elements such as beach access or other landmark points that we would want to be able to find, either by pedestrian or vehicular way. So this is an example of what Family 1 would potentially look like. Family 2, we take a look, step back, and maybe identify a bit more with a historic beach town. The Lyle's Hotel is like a very simple example of Art Deco or a sort of a timeless building in many respects, built during this Art Deco period of time. This sign, uniquely different from the first family, offers a simple style of a primary blade and shoulder off of each side. But again, you'll notice that the blue is very much, we think, a strong reflection of the city. The use of the logo, in this case here, or a simplification of the logo. Actually, down below here, the palm trees, and we've talked about it potentially coming out of the logo. It's actually the pattern in the archway that's over the old 41 corridor on the south side of the corridor. Again, primary identification or a monument sign perhaps coming in at the entry points into the city. And then as we move that type of family sign down through the different scales, vehicular wayfinding, pedestrian, and then your beach access again out on the right, that element takes on different sizes, different scales. And that's a second family that we've looked at, considered. In the third family, we're really looking at colors and a reflection of the environment. And blue, again, continues to be our primary color, but we do have other color choices that we can think about. I think the manner in which we treat color in sort of a meaningful way would be important. We're not looking at vibrant colors. We're not looking at, shocking colors. But here, what we did was we took and better shown in the blow up on the right-hand side through the sort of the texturing of leaf pattern and green on that blue, sort of give a third dimension to the blue in the sign. And so again, we have coral rock in the base, the signage and logo work above. Here, we do not have the round logo, but we carry through with some of the language of the logo. Small town charm, big bright future. And then again, how that sign works from its main monument sign down through the different scales, so vehicular wayfinding, pedestrian, and again, beach access is all part of that. And the blue in this background, like the first sheet, a little hard to see, does have that reflection of green leaf through it. So it actually does have if you will, a third color in it as part of that. One of the other things that we were asked to do early on, prior really to the development of the family of signs and the design of signs, is take a look at the Imperial Boulevard, Bonita Beach Road intersection. A large billboard there, and just wanted to bring forward the most recent concept for that. And here's a rendering of what that might look like. There has been talk in the past of making flag or flag poles something that is important here in the city as part of the entry. We see this as a primary entry point, really, coming off of I-75 into the city, more so than the interchange of I-75 itself, truthfully. And so taking the idea of the flag poles, adding water to it at its base in a fountain, again, a reflection of the creeks and the long western edges of the city, along the Gulf and the bays. We felt that that may be something of interest. We have not added any signage necessarily here, but certainly notice of the city of Bonita Springs could be added to this. And then one of the things we've also done in this rendering, so here's your fountain and flagpoles as a centerpiece. Now, what we think we can do is go ahead and set that fountain right on top of the foundation of the old billboard. Structurally, that's actually a positive thing to us. We'd have to lift that up slightly because this area is depressed for drainage that's collected out of the street. But we also, in this proposal, have taken and landscaped both Imperial as well as Bonita Beach Road in and along this project to, again, contain the street, screen the graveyard from the street, and really enhance that corridor to a certain extent. So that is the presentation for this morning, an update form of the three families, where we are currently in the signage and wayfinding program in that project. We are going to be looking for, like I said, I think it'll be in the next council meeting, direction in which family to approve, and begin with the detailing and the cost estimating that's a requirement of the project to bring back to you. Any questions?
Is there any questions?
I have a couple. What is the cost difference? So if we had one sort of trademarked sign, is it, because you say there's unique signs, you've got three families or three scenarios. How much price difference is it? Would it be cheaper if or would it be a better value for the city if there was a unification of each of the key locations, that there's the same? I mean, what is the price?
Yeah, at this point in time, I don't have any costing for each of the signs. What we can say is pretty assuredly that each sign type, we're certainly within a common budgetary range. Now, the second part of your question, I may not have understood exactly, but the intention is to take any one of these families, or direction council may give, and apply that uniformly across the city. So, by example, the entry signs, right? We don't change the entry sign in any one location. The entry points all receive the same sign. In part, that allows us to, when we identify a sign to put in place, we're understanding then of what that sign is and what the budget would be.
Mayor,
And-
Mayor, can I just add, what you might be looking at is, I think what you're saying is the cost of materials will probably end up being similar. Each location that we put these are going to have their own set of challenges, very similar to
Because I
the
was gonna-
bicycle pedestrian master plan. So something on 41, maybe additional engineering and permitting may take longer in time because of DOT approval, FDOT approvals, breakaway type materials, where something on our own property might go a little bit of a smoother process. What we would want to
And
do
the
is.
billboard?
The billboard, in order to remove that, you'd have to work with the billboard company to buy out the lease agreement as well. And also you'd have to work with Lee County on the fact that it's a drainage detention area there. But I think what we're hoping to do is just very similar to the bicycle pedestrian master plan. Once we have a set of projects, we would be able as staff to help evaluate them on timelines. So just like you always have some in planning, the ones that might take longer, you have some that are basically the low-hanging fruit that could move quicker, maybe on Old 41 as an example, because that's our roadway. And we could help you all prioritize those. You would give us direction on that. And that's when they're entered into the capital improvements budget for planning. So you could look at many of these and put them in out years depending on some feedback from staff as to how long it would take to move through the project. But to, to say that, each location's gonna have its own set of challenges or its own set of easy paths. So it's gonna depend on the cost at each location.
Okay. But great presentation, Kevin. Really. And I love the getting rid of the billboard and putting in those fountains. It's really pretty.
Yes, you show an entrance sign at Imperial Parkway. Is that also I-75? You got them right next to each other. Do we have anything on I-75 or no?
Probably not. I think one of the things that, again, working with the Department of Transportation here, I think that rather than trying to sign anything in the midst of all the things that are going on in those intersections, that one of the things that the department does, it works with you, is they have moved through intersections. I think you've probably seen it up and down the highway, but the interchanges are key to a higher level of what they would call landscape enhancement. And I think that working with the department in organizing and sort of gaining that commonality of landscape treatment in the interchange is a better way to approach that particular area. It's interesting when you come off the interchange and you head towards downtown, the next couple of blocks, traffic lights, the medians have big date trees in them. I mean, there's the beginnings of, or an effort in the past that has been made in the streetscape. And so one of the things that we see in the Imperial and Beach intersection is that's the real threshold into the city. You are coming off the highway at, put it in different terms, you're sort of decompressing, you're getting through the turn off the highway and you're coming into the city. And this really is, I think, probably the first moment to really announce the city of Bonita Springs from I-75.
You notice that are those trees existing there that are blocking the view of the fountain?
No, those are just part of the illustration.
It looks like it's blocking the view around
It's all Photoshop.
around the turn.
It's supposed to be, the fountain's supposed to be nestled in with that backdrop, but I think probably have to work with my artist to get
You
that.
realize that the beach accesses are county accesses?
Yes.
You'd have to, I'm sure the county let us spend the money on signs, but.
And as Arlene has said, and I think Matt's reaffirmed this too, is that depending on where we are, there are different partners that we'll have. The Department of Transportation, Lee County, and certainly the easiest places for us to begin are in the streets and in the lands that the city owns.
Now, in the future, are you going to talk about the blue signs and the green signs for the street signs? Some are private, some are city.
We'll address that in more detail in the future, yes.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank
See
you.
Again. Okay, moving along to consent agenda, put together by our wonderful staff.
So moved.
Motion, second.
Okay, any comments?
Councilwoman Bocas?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye.
Councilman Fullick?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Okay, well, that was quick.
End of discussion on that.
Let's see. Any comments on the agenda? Yes. Mr.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for the improvement, sewer to septic improvement, I'm glad to vote for that, as we just did, because I never want to leave grant money on the table. However, after that portion is complete, I'd just like to circle back with staff and figure out, price points, what can be done, so we're not going to have to, see any significant increases on the taxpayer if possible. So I just wanted to put that in there, that after this portion is over, if we get the grant funding, I then want to address, how we can make it hurt less if possible.
Okay, great. We don't have a number of septic tanks yet? Have any idea?
Bonita Springs
200?
Utilities does have, they have the number within the grant agreement for the two neighborhoods.
Significant. There's quite a few. And it's $6 million to do that project. It's not inexpensive. If you see the engineering that went into the worksheet, it's a big deal. So it's progress. Anything else, Jesse? You got it?
That's it.
Okay. Mayor and council items? Oh, yeah. Anything from the mayor or council?
We currently don't have any green sheets for that one. Council member reports are at the end of the agenda.
Okay. Let's see.
Nothing from me.
City attorney? Oh, boy, she was. City manager, I know she has some stuff for us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. At this time, I'd like Laura Taylor to come forward so that we can discuss the improvements to the City Hall parking lot that are required, as well as the option of adding a pocket park.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before you today is the City Hall parking lot project, where we will be repairing a failing sewer lateral pipe. And if you can see here on the picture in front of you, there are some cracks there in the asphalt in front of City Hall. That's in our parking lot right now. That is above the failing pipe that we'll be replacing. So once we get in there to do that work, we'll also need to repair some of the asphalt. And at that time, our consultant recommended doing some seal coat work, but we feel that a asphalt overlay would really be the better option for us. So we'll be pursuing that at that stage. And then also in this project is a sidewalk that will connect City Hall to Bonita Beach Road. And that will allow pedestrians to be able to walk right up to the front of City Hall. That is a recommendation from our ADA consultant. And then there's also in the project an option for a pocket park. Should you wish to do this, it would require a right-of-way permit. We will be pursuing that already for the sidewalk part of this project. We will also need to coordinate with the county to look at the portion of the green space that's in their right-of-way. But it is a passive park. It has benches, a fountain, enhanced landscaping, and the art piece will not be moved at all. It'll stay in the exact same place, should you wish to pursue the pocket park.
Do we have approval or anything on that, this direction?
So we would need approval on the contract for the dollar amount of the contract, which is already in your capital improvement budget, so there's no budget transfer
I'll make
required.
a motion to approve.
I'll second.
It does that, I just want to clarify, did that include the pocket park
Yes.
as well? Okay.
Oh, I'd like to let's see the definitions of the pocket park. Are we gonna get rid of the bus stop?
No.
That's-
So-
Because you know how many times I go by there and bring back to Publix, because they're not interested in getting their $15,000 carts back? So people are kind of hanging there, right there. So are we going to encourage a loitering place that will not be complimentary to our city?
So it is just an option. You can approve the project without the pocket park design, should you wish. If you do want to pursue it, you can, if you look here, you can kind of see. So this is the sidewalk. The bus stop that you're talking about is to the left. So the green space would be right there where the red circle is. You know, we could look at alternate locations by, once we get further along in the project. We're looking for direction now, if you'd like to pursue.
Well,
it
I'd
or not.
love like enhanced, beautification. I don't know if we need to do,
I think,
Well, just to clarify, so your Bonita Beach Road Visioning Project talked about creating sort of vistas, pocket parks, or beautification projects. This was just an example of how we might be able to do that. But additionally, your master plan includes a bicycle pedestrian pathway on the south end of Bonita Beach Road. At some point, you'll probably want to add respite spots for people just to get off, take a break. But again, it's completely optional. It was an example of how, when we're asking developers to sort of create these opportunities, we could as well.
Yes, Fred.
Yeah, I'm assuming, and if we're not, we ought to, that any benches will not be the kind you can stretch out on. Right?
We can look into that
Well,
further. At this point, it's just.
We have-
Deliberately
we have
uncomfortable.
a sheriff that can enforce
They,
any
they,
loitering
they make a
problem.
bench that's got an arm in the middle of the
Correct.
length.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
well, we,
Yes, Jesse.
I think one of the great things about the project is we're already gonna be in the ground, messing around with everything around City Hall. So this kind of gives us an opportunity to make City Hall look a little bit nicer. We're already in the ground, so it's not gonna cost cost us as much as it generally would. It gives us a place for the art, and it kind of goes along with the same thing we're telling everybody else to do along the corridor. Now we're actually doing it ourselves, and it's not a big price tag. So I'd like to continue with my motion as I stated, if possible, after Nigel, of course.
Thank you. The only thing I have a concern with, I think it's great, love the idea of the pocket parks and that we're doing their program, it's the water feature. Our wonderful Parks and Rec director and I, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, did a little bit of touring, and we were looking at the pocket part over by Depot Park, and putting in a water feature, I think, just adds two things. One, an opportunity for vandalism and mischief, and more work on behalf of our staff, which I don't think it's necessary. I think we can still have a great pocket park, but without a water feature.
Maybe we can move the pocket park with discussion for the bench type and the water type, or not water, and all of those granular details after, and just say, we agree conceptually we want to do a pocket park, and then we can get into the details.
Just going on the record.
Okay. Okay.
with consideration of sidewalk and cycling lanes that are really wide, because the electric bikes are becoming an issue. Okay, when you're walking on the sidewalks, because I walk over here and they go 50 miles an hour, and they believe they have the right of way versus a pedestrian. So I do believe it would be nice if we could do a separation or at least signage, but that's for another day. But okay, it's conditional. We're going to come back to the pocket park. It's going to be there, but what it looks like and
You'll ask for more clarification on the details of the pocket park.
Yes.
but The conception of putting a pocket park.
Yes.
is good.
Okay, do we have to vote on that?
So
Yes,
that's,
please.
Okay,
so that's the motion. Okay.
motion for,
And do
vote?
I have a second?
Yes, I second.
Councilman Purdon,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr,
aye.
Mayor Steinmeier,
Aye.
Councilman Fullick,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bogus,
Aye.
Very good. Okay, city manager, what else we got here?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Can
Fred.
I suggest the staff to at least look into the possibility of would a clock, like you guys put in on Hole 41 and that,
Rotary Club?
someplace, yeah, whatever, whoever
Rotary did
put it
that,
in.
The Rotary clock.
But
Rotary Club,
But
yeah.
one in that area might not be a bad idea.
Something like that.
We can look at all
Yeah.
possibilities and how that complements the art piece we have there as well. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next, I have Jackie Ginson with Community Development to come forward, and she's actually going to handle B, C, and D, and all of these are potential land development code amendments that we wanted to present to you as they've come from the public, they've come from the contractors, and they've come from recommendations from your staff.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Jacqueline, record. The first green sheet deals with some changes to our mobile home zoning district. Just some history, back in 2014, the city did approve amendments to allow the construction of single-family homes by right in this district, whereas before it was only allowed by approval of a special exception, which is a public hearing process, application fee, and whatnot. And really what we wanted to do was encourage the development of single-family homes in these districts. It's a different form of construction, built to different codes, probably more sustainable as we go through storm events and other types of disasters. So in 2020, what we did is we went ahead and proposed additional amendments, because what was happening is we were concerned of mass and scale of these single-family homes directly adjacent to mobile homes that were typically lower on the ground and smaller footprints. At the time, mobile homes were only required to elevate to a certain point on piers to address flood zone requirements. And then conventional single-family homes actually had to be brought up to base flood elevation. So you actually had a mass and scale issue. So we proposed amendments to go ahead and only allow single-family homes at a different setback regulation. So they had greater distant street setbacks and rear setbacks. Now, when you do that on these smaller substandard mobile home lots, you really have a very tiny footprint, and it makes it cost prohibitive for people to actually rebuild conventional single-family homes. So in doing some research, some things that have changed. Now mobile homes actually have to be built to the same base flood elevation. The difference is it's required to the bottom of the chassis. I'm gonna look at you to make sure I'm saying that correctly. So the mass and scale issue that we were so concerned about before in 2020 really isn't really an issue anymore. We've heard from many people in our older mobile home parks, they want to build back with a single family home or stick-built construction instead of the mobile homes, especially when you have to elevate them so high up in the air and meet wind loads. It just makes sense to go ahead and allow them to rebuild at the same setbacks that they had as if they were a mobile home unit. So that is staff's recommendation on the first item, is to allow us to pursue and bring those changes back to you for consideration. This is the same standard that Lee County uses, so we are not going backwards. We're going to be right in the same level playing field as the county.
Now, motion to approve.
Second.
I got a question. What is the separation of the trailers? What's the setback from the property line?
So in most cases, it's a 5-foot side yard setback with 10 feet between structures. And that's what we would be
5
looking
feet on
to.
each side, is that what they are now?
Some of them
They look
are,
pretty close together, so
so some are 5 and 5, some are 3 and 10, or sorry, 3 and 7, some are 1 and 9. It's a mix in the parts. What I also think we've noticed and observed is that people may have put up carports and things like that without proper permits. I'm not really sure, or maybe the county had a different way of evaluating and enforcing those standards at time of permit, but the intent is 10 feet between structures for the principal unit itself and also any accessory structure.
does the fire department need access to down between the buildings?
The fire department typically does not get involved at a single-family permit level, but the zoning code would allow for the 10-foot separation, which is pretty much on par with the fire prevention code.
So they could be put up on a mound of dirt and then flood the neighbors like,
We have regulations in place for flood or drainage plan review at time of permit. So all those items are addressed in your land development code currently.
so currently they have to elevate. I'm
Depending if they're in a special flood hazard area, they do have to meet that for our flood ordinance requirements.
Now they have to elevate if they're washed out, like, there's quite a few of them are washed out.
We have situations where we have literally 10 feet of difference between existing grade and the elevation that they have to be elevated to.
Can you take a existing mobile home park and turn it into an RV park?
No, sir, we are not making any changes allowing recreational vehicles.
Huh?
We are making no changes for recreational vehicles. That is not part of this request.
I was just wondering, because we got, I think there was 40 mobile homes there on the beach that got wiped out.
Yep, and we're actively working with them. They're the ones that actually are the catalyst to making this change. They want to build back with single-family homes. They do not want to go through what they went through again.
They want to go back to stick houses? or mobile homes?
It's a combination. Some people do want to build back with mobile homes, some want to build back with conventional single-family homes. So it's a mix.
And they're all gotta be elevated?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, sir.
Nope. I don't have it.
Anything else? Okay, so we have a motion to
We
approve?
had a motion and a second.
Councilwoman Carr,
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier,
Aye.
Councilman Fullick,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bogus, Councilman Purdon.
Okay.
The next land development code amendment that we're proposing to bring forward is an amendment to our downtown district. It deals with temporary signage as the downtown starts to redevelop, and we're very excited about that. The city has no regulations per se about construction fencing and advertising where it's coming soon, and it's very limited in square footage. It's essentially 32 square feet in most cases. But when you think of when you're in a downtown environment and when you visited some downtowns, you sometimes see when a project's under construction something that I would equate to a storyboard. And it really generates a vision and excitement about a project that's under construction that's coming to an area. So we've done some very preliminary research on other neighboring urban municipalities or counties that have regulations for that. And that's what we're looking to do, is go ahead and create some regulations above and beyond that gives the development community more than just 32 square feet to announce a project that's under construction. So that is the request that's before you today, for us to go ahead and create some regulations for your review.
These are private signs on private property.
They are signs that are wrapped around a construction fence. So instead of seeing what normally you would see, like a green mesh screen, or sometimes a screen not at all, you would have the opportunity to actually create a storyboard that looks very attractive, that again generates that excitement for redevelopment in the downtown area. That is staff's intent.
And when do these signs go up and when do they come down?
It would be done in conjunction with a construction permit, whether it's site work or a vertical building permit. But we will hash all those details out as part of the amendment.
And specify that the storyboard needs to be related to the property.
I'm not in favor of it, but go ahead. Anybody else?
I motion to approve.
Second.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mayor Steinmeier,
No.
Councilman Fullick,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bogus, Councilman Purdon, Councilwoman Carr.
Aye.
Okay, and the last amendment is to our Bonita Beach Road corridor overlay. That was an overlay that was created in 2019 based on the recommendations from Tool Design Group and DPZ Co-Design. So what we found recently is we've gone through a couple of special exception public hearing processes where certain users had to go ahead and come before the zoning board and the city council for approval of a use that's inside of a building. So now that we've been through a couple of these, and really the intent of those regulations was, it was kind of like a form-based code light regulation. So, and that premise is, if it's in a building that's designed a certain way to our aesthetics, it's landscaped, does it really matter what's inside of the building? So now that we've been through a couple of those special exception applications, we feel pretty comfortable that there's a couple of uses that we could go ahead and move to either an administrative review or a use by right, subject to certain regulations being in place and added. So again, these are indoor-only uses. They are not for any drive-through uses or any uses that would have an external impact or external storage component. Everything's interior to a building that is designed to the city's regulations. Architecturally, if it has overhead doors, it's going to be a very attractive overhead door that's made of glass, or it's going to be screened. We have existing standards to take care of that.
So explain what form-based is. Everybody has to build the same thing?
No, form-based code is a concept and philosophy. It's a land use tool, if you will, and that's what our downtown code is based on. It's where the building takes precedent in the form of development. So you're looking at where the building's closer to the road, and it really takes a precedent versus what an individual use would be. So we're not dictating a specific building design, especially in the Bonita Beach Road corridor. Our architectural regulations allow for a variety of different architectural styles. Our premise here is if a use is inside of a building and it meets our regulations, do we really need to make a business owner go through a special exception?
So you
No.
wouldn't be able to build a dome under our codes? That wouldn't meet the form. I think where's the creativity if you're gonna have you're gonna dictate where every building is built on Old 41? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're not looking at Old 41 right now. This is just the Bonita Beach Road corridor, and again, our existing regulations, I think, have been very easy to work with the business community in making their plans come to fruition.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Councilman Fullick,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bogas,
Aye.
Councilman Purdon,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr,
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Moving on to updates regarding Hurricane Ian recovery. We wanted the opportunity to discuss with you the FEMA's Community Disaster Loan, CDL program. We have been advised by the state as well as Lee County that in the past, with Hurricane Michael, many communities that utilized this loan program, the actual loan was forgiven to that community. That's not a guarantee. We understand that the standards of this loan might be easier and more efficient for the city than a commercial loan. We're still working through the line of credit process as well, but this might be another avenue. The state has offered technical assistance to our staff to be able to apply for the loan, and Kevin Guthrie has been very an advocate of the program to each of the municipalities impacted by Ian. So we wanted to have the opportunity to pursue that and have our staff work with the state on that, and we'd like some direction from you on that as well.
And you don't have to approve this till when? End of the fiscal year?
The end of the fiscal year, well, we would come back to you all if we decide to draw on the line of credit, of course.
Before October?
Yes, but we wanted to be in line for the opportunity, should we determine we need that as well.
Absolutely. Motion to approve.
Second.
Any comment? I don't like borrowing money when we don't have to. We assess the people to pay.
You need Lisa to comment, because she's right there.
Well, Lisa, I didn't know you. I'm sorry to hear about your mother now. Gee whiz, poor gal.
Thank you so much. This process, I think there were some attachments on your green sheet. This process will take 2 to 3 months, approval process. What we just wanted to do was present this to council, if we're approved, as an alternative to a line of credit, because several of the terms that are in this, because it's backed by the state and by FEMA, financially backed, but promoted by the state and supported by the state and FEMA, they can provide us a little more advantageous financial terms, if you will. So we just wanted council, if and when we do need the line of credit or funds available to help us with FEMA, just in the short term until we get reimbursed, we wanted council to have every option available. And this being so much more advantageous to us, we wanted to acknowledge wanted to ask your approval to start the process. Nothing will be committed or done with this or the line of credit or anything without coming back to council. And please know, staff does not encourage borrowing to help with the FEMA, but is a short-term need that we may have. And as we said before, 16 to 18 months may be a typical time frame to be reimbursed for our debris hauling that we did. So this is just a short-term fix, hopefully to just help us make do until they're able to get us our reimbursement through FEMA from the traditional lines. Now, we are still waiting on our expedited funds. We'd asked for about $5 million, and that is still in process, and we're asking FEMA about it regularly. But with everything else with the federal government, it doesn't move as fastly as we would like. So we just want all of our options open from a financial standpoint so that we can make sure we meet our financial obligations in the short term while we wait on our reimbursement from FEMA.
Okay, well, I'd just like to comment. We started out, we borrowed $36 million and we paid back $3 million a year for 20 years. So that's $60 million for a $36 million investment. That's not right. We don't need to borrow the money. If we have to raise the taxes, we'll raise the taxes. It's a lot easier than borrowing money. You know, like that $5 million we borrowed to buy that land is going to cost us $7.5 million to pay it off. That's waste.
Well, borrowing money does cost more than paying as you go, which
That's
is
right.
why each month when we show you all the financial reports, we hope and we endeavor from a financial standpoint to accumulate cash as we go for our capital improvement program. Those two amounts, that borrowings that you spoke about, those were to fund capital, long-term capital improvements within the city. Now again, capital improvement borrowing is more expensive than paying as you go. We hope to pay as you go, and that's why you see us accumulating funds and setting aside and planning, watching our 10-year CIP and allocating funds on the next 2 or 3 years and trying to make sure we have the money sitting there accumulated to fund those so we don't have to do long-term borrowing for our CIP. That is our wish, and that is our hope.
Okay, now
And our plan.
We have impact fees for the roads.
We do, and we have gas tax available.
The money's there to build the roads that we're improving.
That's what we plan for, and that's what we present. And remember, each year, today, starting again, we'll have the beginning of our budget for next year. So we talk about our CIP projects or capital improvement projects, and we populate those and infuse those into our capital improvement program. And our goal is to have that funded with existing funds. And the way we do that is we accumulate money designated for those projects. It goes through the approval process. And then as it moves forward, we're able to fund it with pay-as-you-go funding, which is much preferred to capital improvement borrowing, long-term borrowing. Yes, it is very much preferred from a financial standpoint.
Okay, we got the direction, yes.
Okay.
I believe you had a
There's
motion
been a-
in a second.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Councilman Bullock?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Bogas?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
No.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This time, I would like Matt Feeney to give an update on our progress with working to provide some additional sand on our beaches through a DEP program.
So, as you may recall, we've been trying to work with the existing beach renourishment project that Lee County does on behalf of the city as well as for Lovers Key State Park to utilize that, if possible, to provide sand to the remaining portion of the beach that was affected by Hurricane Ian in the event that we get individual property owners that are interested in participating. So there's a component of soliciting easements, temporary easements from folks, as well as modifying through the permitting agencies the existing permit for the beach renourishment project that already occurs on Bonita Beach that is scheduled to happen this late this summer or really early this fall. So we have a consultant that's been working diligently on that. Really, most of the agencies seem agreeable to the concept. We are still really waiting to hear from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is kind of the final say, and so that will decide whether this project is able to go forward utilizing an existing dredge project or whether it becomes a truck haul project. Regardless, there's some design effort and there'll need to be some outreach to the individual property owners south of the existing beach project because it's really only on a voluntary basis that we can do anything. So we've got some proposals from some folks that can help us with the easement portion, and we have a proposal now from our design engineer for the beach portion. So we're waiting on a funding agreement that we believe will be forthcoming from the state for about $2 million, and then obviously with our legislative asks, we're asking for the remaining $2 million, which is a total of $4 million. Again, it is all on a voluntary basis, and we will have to work pretty diligently to see what the real interest is. It's about 160 property owners, and we'll need to send mailers and have, as I mentioned, kind of a PR firm to keep that forefront throughout the summer should either type of project move forward.
Well, I'm concerned about property rights of the people that.
That's
own
why we
the
need the
beach.
easements.
I mean, permanent. If you put sand on my beach, you own my beach?
No, sir, we would be looking at,
And I'd have to pay for that sand, right?
no, sir. We would be looking at temporary easements. Now, there's some permit requirements that come along with placing sand on the beach, so the easements are, right now, it looks like they would be a 3-year period of time because there's additional things you have to do once you place sand. But no, it would be a one-time, looks like about a 3-year easement. We're still working through that, but it would not be a permanent thing. To the north is a permanent project, you're correct.
We haven't approved it yet. We're still working on it.
We're still working on it. We believe a funding agreement is forthcoming from the state. As soon as that comes, we would be executing agreements for the design as well as for the outreach to solicit easements, because it would be a fairly tight timeline to make this happen.
Well, shouldn't you start looking?
We've been working on this
Great.
since
No, I mean.
months, 1 month after the storm.
Perfect. I know you have Matt.
Additionally, we had verbal outreach to the Bonita Beach Association, so they're aware of this and are willing to work with the city on getting that additional information out as we move. But we do need a funding agreement first.
Well, we're supposed to, Bonita Beach is a pristine beach. That means you don't mess with it. My building is further from the water than it's ever been. I don't see why you need more sand.
Well, there are two schools of thought on that. We have surveyed the beach, and we believe we've lost about 70,000 cubic yards south of the project that already exists.
And may I make a point, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
You're one voice on Bonita Beach and one voice in your building, and what the staff is saying is that they have reached out to 106.
No, we have not.
But you're going to.
We will if we get a funding agreement.
Perfect.
The way this would work is only by individual property owners executing looks like a 3-year easement. That is the only way sand would be placed on their private property.
I know the beach is gonna build back up, the dunes are gonna build back up, because we don't have these great big trucks driving up and down, beating down the sand like we had for the last few months.
So what is it you're asking?
Do we need to vote on anything?
We're
Just making you aware of what's coming
providing with an
forward.
update. There will probably most likely begin to be some outreach. There's the residents on the beach have been slightly made aware of this, so there'll be more to come. No decision has required today, but as again, it's completely voluntary. It would be up to the individual property owner to decide to participate in the program. You have folks out there who've reached out to us that have asked us to pursue opportunities for them to regain the sand.
A lot of these,
That's
so,
'cause
Mr. Mayor.
the sand that washed off, it went to the south end, to the north end of the beach. They didn't get their sand back like they could have.
It's not that simple, unfortunately. Some of the sand is offshore.
Access. Anyways,
Mr. Mayor.
yes, sir.
Well,
Go ahead, Jesse.
So this is gonna help the people, all the people who were emailing and then the ones who were mad that the county didn't give them the sand and all of that debacle. So this will ease the pain of those folks, is that correct?
So let me be clear. This does not have a funding agreement yet. So we're taking a lot of action behind the scenes to try and make this a possibility. Which started immediately after the storm. If someone is in dire need of sand today on the private section of the beach, the state has a program. You can register on their website and you can participate in a 50-50 match up to $150,000. So if you wanted to put $300,000 truck $300,000 worth of sand onto your private property, you can do so. If you get selected by the state, you have to register, and they will then cost share with you up to $150,000.
That's what I was trying to get to. Yes, sir.
It was gonna be part of my report, but just, I think for everybody in council, I don't know, did you get a copy of the TDC report from last week?
We had Ellie go to that meeting, but are working in absolute lockstep coordination
And that's
with
what I
the
wanted
folks
to
that
say.
gave the presentation.
Was what's going on between the county and our staff is phenomenal, but I would encourage you, if Arlene, if you don't have everything that I got, I'll make sure you do have it. The engineer, county engineer, gave probably a 40-minute explanation of some of the things they're doing, things that we don't know because we're not engineers, the amount of sand that has to go back on the beach. And I think if you take a look at that, you're going to appreciate the scope of this. But what we think and what is actual, I found out what monument markers are. Nobody in the room knew that. But they're all up and down. They've measured how much they've lost. They know to within a cubic yard of how much we've lost, and it's a lot. But looking at the report and letting staff continue on just makes a lot of sense.
Yes, Fred?
Yeah, a simple question, may not be a simple answer. Let's assume you have one or two property owners that say we're not gonna give you an easement, which is possible, more than likely. When the tide is out, don't you, you can still go out and work on
I'm not
the
gonna be answering legal questions
Oh.
about legal rights on the beach. What I can tell you is it is on a voluntary basis. They will need to execute an easement. This is exceptionally complicated. There's been a lot of work that's going on and continues to go on. And should we get the funding agreement, that work will then come to fruition.
And I do want to reiterate, Lee County staff has been very helpful through this whole process with us and kept us informed of all these opportunities.
Great, thank you both, everybody.
A couple of other quick announcements as well. We did submit all of our legislative requests as well with our lobbyist, and we're working on some talking points for him as well, some one-page summaries of those projects. Matt, myself, and Ellie attended on Monday the local mitigation strategy meeting for Lee County, and we're able to submit all of our projects, including the elevation projects throughout the city, home buyout, as well as the Morton Avenue drainage project. And we'd like to thank our adjacent sister cities for all supporting our projects as well through the process. I did want to let you all know that the EAR, the Evaluation Appraisal Review, will be presented to the local planning agency on February 22nd. And it will be presented to City Council for first reading on March 1st. Also, at the March 1st meeting, as you know, directly following this meeting, we're going to have a workshop on stormwater. I would like to request that we have a workshop on transportation at 4 p.m. prior to our March 1st council meeting. And then additionally, on March 1st, Matt will have an update from our traffic engineer on the first look of truck traffic in the downtown as well.
Oh, great. And that'll happen March 4th at 4?
March
First, I'm sorry.
March 1st at 4 p.m. will be a review of the capital improvement projects directly related to transportation.
Okay,
And then during the city council meeting, you'll have the first reading of the evaluation appraisal review report from Dr. Banyan, and you'll have an update from the traffic engineer on truck traffic in the downtown.
perfect.
Okay, that's it?
That's it, sir.
All righty, mayor and council reports. Fred, you got anything?
Yeah, a little bit of confusion. Originally, it was kind of announced that I-75 would be expanded to 10 lanes from basically Golden Gate Parkway up to Corkscrew Road. Now, there's been some revision to this. At the moment, they're only going to do 8 lanes, but that easily and quickly could go to 10, because right above Corkscrew Road, it's going to be 10. And we got a lot of traffic between Corkscrew Road and Golden Gate Parkway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I think they're defining what they're going to do and what they're not going to do, but my guess is this may change again. That's just an educated guess.
I can add to that. I came over Terry Street, and both ways, bumper to bumper, all 3 lanes at each side or whatever it is. There was nothing but cars, both coming and going, north and south. Unbelievable. I've never seen so much traffic in my life. I was trying to get back from the firehouse from the Phoenix Award we had the other night. Anything else?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I attended, which I saw you there, the Bonita Springs monthly meeting, and there was a crew of 4 that received the Phoenix Award, and of course that was very neat to see. The family was there with them, and Chief DeWitt also provided an update on Station 7, which is located there on Hickory Boulevard, and they have begun renovation on that station, and are hoping to be operating in somewhat soon manner, and moving as quickly as they can, as most are trying.
Okay. Jesse?
Yes, sir. I got a very cool update about Lover's Key. I was complaining last meeting that it was going to be a year and a half. They've expedited the timetable to what I'm hearing is July 1st for it to reopen. So 4th of July, we'll be back at Lover's Key. So, it seems like a long way away, but it's way better than a year and a half. So I wanted to share that. Number 2 most visited state park in the whole state of Florida, and it's in our city. So glad that's going to be reopening. And then last, I wanted to express condolences to the Fort Myers Police Department, City of Fort Myers. Most of all, the family of Chief Diggs. If you didn't hear, Chief Diggs passed away this morning. And, he's somebody who served for 4 decades. And quite frankly, he was really young, so he passed too early. So may God bless him, his family, at this difficult time. And just thank you for your service, sir.
Okay, yes.
I attended my first Tourist Development Council meeting, and extremely informative. It ran longer than it normally would, but that was a good thing. And as I said, the county engineer was there. So the beach renourishment, what they were encouraged by, 2 things that I took away was, 1, they're taking projects, and if something's easy or can be dovetailed, one of them is Bonita Springs. So we're going to be the beneficiary of some of the beach renourishment ahead of schedule. There was some bad news. The bad news is tourist tax revenues down 45.9%. And that's not money we're going to make up somewhere down the road. The numbers for 2021 were 5.41 million, and for 2022 dropped down to 2.92 million. So pretty big gap. The good news is that not only because of the contractors and the folks that are working here, but it seems that tourist traffic has picked up again, but there are only 67 or 68% of the rooms available in Lee County currently. So that's hotel revenue again that it's going to be a while before we recover that. Commissioner Hammond and his staff, very welcoming, and I thought some of it was just being the new guy and political, but he made a point of stating that they realize what we're going through here in Bonita and Estero, but he said that Tallahassee gets, finally, after all these years, that a lot of their revenue for the state comes from our city and this area. So now there is real focus in Tallahassee on getting us funds that we need, similar to some of the experience that staff's having. And we're at or near the head of the line on some of the projects simply because we're working with us makes it easier for the county. Nothing else to report except the Blue Zone. We got that certification. They're encouraging us to use it and maybe reaching out to our business community that they should be using it in their advertising. So that might be great to get a great message to get out. That's all I have. Thank you.
All righty. Yes,
No, once again?
yes, Laura.
Hello, everybody. I did go to DC for FAST, which is a League of Cities fly in, fly out to advocate for our city. However, the State of the Union was then announced. So we had very little reception, except our wonderful senators, both Marco Rubio and Senator Scott, came and met with actually the whole group, and took questions. And before I went up, I had met with Matt and went over photos that I had taken, and I presented to them, and each picture had that hurricane map that Matt provided, and then infrastructure breakage, I mean, where we had, pipes exposed, water damage to different buildings, and so forth. And so they were fabulous. And then the next day, of course, the day after the State of the Union, everybody's blowing us off. So we were barking back and forth. But a couple of us were able to slip in to an oversight committee. And there, it was amazing theater, but I got to hear our own wonderful Congressman, Byron Donalds, talking to and asking questions of former Twitter executives, and each of whom were lawyers, and I believe each of whom had at least 3 lawyers with them. And ironically, I'm in the back of the picture of C-SPAN while Byron is talking, and he did fabulously. But I knew it was going to work out somehow wonderfully, because when I got on the plane to go to D.C., Byron was on the plane. So I took it as good karma. And it wasn't too cold, which was another great thing. Although the city's changed, you have to definitely be a little bit more wary, and folks are a little bit more aggressive. But all in all, at least they got pictures of Bonita Springs and what we took, because somehow I always feel we get left out. So it was, interesting, and I thought worthwhile in the end. Thank you.
Okay, my turn. Lee County has projected that about 5 of the beach accesses will be open in the middle of March. So the beach accesses and the parks are still closed in Lee County on the beach. But middle of March, they're going to have, I was just trying to find it in which accesses are going to be open in the middle of March, which is a couple, 3-4 weeks from now. But it'll be a while before they get the main park and Little Hickory Island Beach Park at the end. The bathrooms are destroyed. So they're coming along. We're going to miss this whole tourist season, but there's always next year. They'll be back. Anything else here? Public comment? Yes, Ron.
Sign up a sheet, but that triggers something. As a resident of the beach area, one concern I know we're expressing is the more opened up the beach is, the more concerned we are as far as our safety of our properties, et cetera. So I just want to go on the record to ask if, when they do all this opening, now you got a lot of extra parking available for people to come in and do damage, steal from the existing properties. So I just hope that the sheriff department is maybe going to provide us with a little extra protection once the beach opens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Ron George, by the way.
It's Ron George, by the way. You got that? Okay.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, members of the council, Mayor, Mr. Mayor. Ben Hershenson, Avonlea Drive, Bonita Springs. If there's probably one subject that everybody has been hearing about for years, has to do with the subject of, quote, water, however you look at it. One of the issues I have is when we see all these developments going on, is the fact that, a developer will come in, or an applicant will come in and say, we're going to build 1,000, residential units, and we're going to have irrigation furnished by a well to the Mid-Hawthorne Aquifer or Lower Tamiami Aquifer. And of course, you have to get the permit, the ERP, Environmental Resource Permit from Southwell Water Management. But I suppose the Department of DEP gets involved as well to make sure, the work you're doing is exactly what the engineers say. That's where my focus is. An engineer, and all due respect to engineers, I really wonder if somebody, an applicant, puts down on a form we're going to have a particular aquifer access for irrigation, and it's going to draw 200 gallons, 300 gallons a minute to supply irrigation. Who gets involved with the hydrogeological studies? We know when we hear from areas of Fort Myers, Cape Coral, whatever, that during the dry season, as you get closer to late May, April, May, that wells are running dry, or somebody has a well and they have to go deeper to get the water. So my concern is a developer will come in and say, in one neighborhood, for example, and say, okay, we're going to have this well, it's going to produce so much water. But maybe a half a mile or a mile away, there's another well to that same aquifer. Who pays attention to the drawdown and the possibility that the person who's had a well for umpteen years, now this huge development comes in, how do they know they're going to still get water? In other words, as you draw more and more water from that aquifer, somebody down the street perhaps might be affected by that drawdown. So I just raise a question, not to create any more work for anybody, but I really wonder, does anybody pay attention to what is stated on an application of so many gallons per minute from that aquifer? Does anybody care about neighboring wells in the area? And it's a kind of rhetorical question, but somehow I think something that should be considered in the future, that that you really care about the neighborhood down the street, or when it's looked at by the various boards and, whether it be, community development or the building department or state agencies and so forth, does anybody really care about somebody down the street who may have a well that could go dry because this new development is going to be sucking their water from the same aquifer? Just simply a question that I don't have the answer, but it's something that hopefully we can start looking at or start asking those questions. Thank you.
Yes, John Dahmer, do you have any comment on that, please?
Or Matt?
No.
Why don't, if you would allow us, Mayor and Council, why don't we speak a little bit offline as well?
Okay, Kyle, come forward. Thank you. I got a follow-up.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, City Council. My name is Kyle Moran. I first moved to Bonita Springs 30 years ago. I just wanted to thank all of council, but particularly staff and Arlene and Matt, for so quickly and effectively repairing an issue that happened in our downtown. We have all these trucks driving through, and one of them dropped all this aggregate, and in the aggregate was some cement, and it left a pretty ugly looking trail all the way from Ragsdale down to Hampton, right in the middle of our downtown, right in front of the coffee shop and near the ice cream shop and some of the great stuff that we have down there. So it was really great to see the Public Works Department get on top of that and clean it up so quickly. And I think that's also a great sign of a city that identifies and solves problems. Government, not just light, but government effective, which is terrific. And I was pleased to hear that you'll be getting additional details on the traffic study too, as City Council has directed staff to do with the amount of trucks we have down there. According to Naples, 48,000 workers enter Collier County every day to go work in Naples and then go back at night. That makes Bonita Springs a border town, a border city. We don't have that many workers in our town to account for all those workers that are going down to Naples. So we know that they're coming from places like Cape Coral and Lehigh and so forth, and they're coming through our downtown, and they're creating a real cost for our downtown, as exhibited by this recent cleanup that we had to do down there. I think it's also important, as we addressed today a couple times, to make sure that we have great signs downtown, a great sign of the turnaround, the revitalization that we're working on down there. The last 10 years, some of the most prominent signs that we've had in our downtown include a pawn shop, a check cashing store, and an abandoned Circle K. And it's so important for us to make sure that we get great public signs down there directing folks to all the wonderful parking that we've invested in, millions and millions of dollars that we've invested in. Where do you find that parking? It's also great for us to have signs that say, welcome to downtown. And as we get those great public signs, they'll help forge this path for more of the private signs. So we already have some green shoots of which down there, the coffee shops and the ice cream stores that we just talked about. So I think that's just a tremendously important issue. It's great for us to have great signs of the commerce and community that we're creating down there. And ultimately, paving the way with these low-cost finishing touches to transform our downtown from that throughway, the place where just 48,000, give or take, workers make their way through our city every year, to a great destination with great commerce and community for all Beniceans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyle. Anybody else? I think John's taking care of Ben.
One clarification just for the public. I did want to make everyone aware, especially our community on the beach, that our community policing does have dedicated patrols all through the evening and all through the day just for that area, so that those folks have an ability for safety and security, and where we get updates regularly as staff on that security, on those security checks.
Any other public
Thank you.
comment? I guess we're ready to go home, adjourn.
No, sir, we immediately
But we-
following this is the workshop on stormwater.
But we adjourn this.
Well, I'm gonna close this meeting out.
Correct.
We're adjourned. We'll be back in 10 minutes at 10:30 for the workshop.